here right away to Chris. If we do get a quorum, I'm going to sort of immediately call a timeout, and we're going to consider the minutes. So if you have comments and thoughts about the minutes from the last meeting, be prepared. That could come up at any time during the agenda. And if you're planning to leave before the end of the meeting, we haven't gotten to the minutes, please let us know, because I think it's going to be tight on whether we have quorum today. Chris? Okay.
Thanks, Mark. Good morning, everybody. I wanted to provide a very brief update on WIOA funding because we just got word. The good news is it's not as bad of a cut as we had feared. The bad news is that we're still seeing a reduction in this upcoming year. So we talked in the last meeting a bit about how even if the funding were level at the national level, we would still see a reduction because New York State is doing better on certain economic indicators compared to other states. And even within New York State, New York City is doing better on certain economic indicators than other local areas. And it's all based on a formula as to how the total pot is divided. We described a pie last time, and our share of the pie is shrinking. And so the good news again is flat funding for FY18 for WIOA, but we'll still see a reduction of about $8 million, from $65 million down to $57 million. And we just learned about this a couple days ago from the New York State Department of Labor. So it's about a 12% reduction. It's not terrible, it's not great. I think that the agencies are still absorbing this information. I think we will plan to let you know how the agencies are going to absorb those cuts, hopefully before the next meeting. But now we know the number, we can adjust the plans for how we'll absorb those. The big question is still FY19, because that will factor into the budget that's being negotiated for October 1st forward. And if you'll look at the next slide, you probably saw that the Trump administration proposed a detailed budget in late May after they proposed a skinny budget in March. They proposed to cut federal WIOA funding by about 40%. And for us, if that went through, in addition to the $8 million we're going to lose this year, that would be another probably $21 million that we would lose. Now, we don't think that it's going to go through like this. This is probably a negotiating position, but all signs seem to point to a further reduction for next year. But we're going to have to watch Congress and the president to see what happens, and we may not know until September. So it's not as bad as we'd feared, but it's still it's not an insignificant amount. So that's the latest, and we will keep you informed, and we will sing the praises of the construction happening next door. So I'm going to turn it over to. Are there any questions about that?
I just want to say I got a call already from one of my.
Can you speak into the mic, Arnie? Sorry.
I got a call from one of my CBO friends that they're already laying off people. I don't know if it was as a result of that, but it may be him. I'm sorry. Nimick?
Yeah, I mean, this money wouldn't be hitting yet in terms of contracts. Yeah, I don't know what that is, but anyway. Any other questions about the budget stuff? Again, we'll give you guys an update for how the agencies plan to absorb this in the near future. I'm going to turn it over to Reynold.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Reynold Graham, Policy Associate with the Workforce Development Board staff. I promise I have some better news to share. And that's going to be regarding the Summer Youth Internship campaign that the board's been leading since February. And during this portion of the agenda, everyone can look to the fourth tab in their book, page 32. There's an infographic there that has some data that we'll be looking at. It's also going to be available on the screen, but you have that option as well. So just as a reminder, the Youth Internship Campaign is an effort to support the city's summer youth internship programs, both Lattice for Leaders and the Summer Youth Employment Program. And at the beginning of February, the board launched a campaign with the goal of securing 300 internship slots collectively and 8 internship slots per member. And this is an increase over last year, which our goal was at that point to have members support 5 internship slots as an individual and 250 internship slots as a board collectively. And just as another reminder, members could support the campaign in one of 3 ways, either hiring a young person directly, supporting the program with a contribution financially, or connecting someone in their network to either program. So with the official start of the programs coming up in a few weeks, we're actually winding down our campaign. But with that, I'm happy to announce that as a board, we've collectively supported 715 internship slots at this point, more than doubling the board's goal. And this is also more than double last year what we did, which is 265, and almost 10 times what we've done since 2015, where we supported about 75 slots. So this is really a market increase over the years. I think something to celebrate, really. I also note that these numbers are commitments or pledges at this point, and so we'll report back later in the fall when the numbers are finalized as to how many young people have actually been supported through the board's efforts. However, as again, you can look up and see that 17 out of a potential 26 members took part in this year's campaign. And when you take into account those who expressed interest in hiring directly and those who made efforts to connect folks to their network to their campaign, about 80% of the board was actively engaged. So that's really something, again, to celebrate. As we look to next summer, we'll definitely engage the board and look for your feedback as to how we can improve the campaign for next year, and also how you can help us set an appropriate goal as well. But that's all I have. I'll open it up if anyone has any comments or questions.
I just wanted to add one quick thing. I think we wanted, unfortunately, Eileen Auld couldn't be here today. She's drilling next door. So, but no, it's City. That's right. She's a career changer. But City was able, City's been a big contributor in the past, and they gave more, I think 1.175 million this year to the program. Obviously, not every organization has that level of resource, but we very much appreciate their level of contribution to the City of New York that will support over 400 slots for young people. So we just really wanted to highlight that and thank them. And we want to thank all the members that have contributed, but that's a particular note that we wanted to highlight.
And just on behalf of Commissioner Chong and the Workforce Development Group over at NYC, I just want to thank each and every one who participated, picked up the phone, reached out to your networks, and not only for this year, but for your past years of support. So we're very grateful, and your contributions are going to help us reach another record number of young people being served the rest of the libraries again this year. So thank you.
Daphne, can you just bring us up to speed on where you are with summer youth employment generally? This is 700 out of...
And use the mic.
And use the mic, yeah.
Yes, so a few weeks ago, the budget was adopted, and an additional 5,000 slots were committed and are now baselined. We are now baselined at 70,000 slots for SYEP, which is more than doubled at the start of the administration. So it's tremendous. We are thrilled and excited, and in terms of where we are, we actually started the timeline with our providers and with the application process much earlier this year. Starting at the start of January, we released the worksite application. Our participant application was moved up a month to early February, and so our entire process is actually running quite smoothly. We have over nearly 63 to 64,000 already enrolled through the lottery process. We have another 2 weeks to go to start our first cohort on July 5th. The second cohort will begin on July 11th. So we're in very good shape, the best shape I think we've been in terms of getting placements. It's been much better for our providers, the work sites, and also for our participants to have a better sense of what's happening during the summer. So the budget, the additional slots is definitely a great help, but having that baseline has actually just helped us operationally to improve the program overall. So we're very excited about this summer.
Does this make us one of the biggest programs in the country?
It
Who
is.
else do we know?
It
Do we know who
is.
else is in that sort of top tier?
Yeah, I think Chicago may be at like 30,000. Maybe, yeah.
That's interesting.
Can I just ask a question about
How to speak up so we can everybody can hear.
I got shot. You don't want me to shout, eh? So I'm just curious, for the vulnerable youth, because that's sort of where I'm working.
Yes.
How many people participated in the lottery and how many people were selected?
So vulnerable youth is one of the options under SYP, and it operates a little differently from the general pool or the community-based pool. There's no lottery process for vulnerable youth. We partner with several agencies.
Including Department of Ed?
No, we work actually with, so there's defined populations that we work with for VY, and that's young people who are in foster care, receiving preventative services through ACS, so we get a number of referrals through them. Those that are justice involved, so we work closely with Department of Probations, and runaway and homeless youth, so we work with the Department of Homeless Services. So they provide referrals to our, so we have 7 contractors who support the vulnerable youth contract. And so as long as those young people are referred, have proper documentation, they generally work with a case manager at those agencies as well. They are then provided a work opportunity through summer youth employment program. And
I'm sorry, so the people from the Department of Ed who are with disabilities, they're not in that group?
not within vulnerable youth, but actually DOE has a separate contract for SYP to serve young people with disabilities, and a number of our SYP providers also provide services for youth with disabilities.
And how many people were being served in that?
I believe it's about 4,500 last year, and in the vulnerable youth category, we're serving 3,000 a year.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Chris.
So I want to make a comment about the fact that I think we need to do a better job explaining what some of these positions are, because as an organization, Allied Universal tried to reach out to take as many candidates as we could. The Ladders for Leaders program, it seems that the candidates were not interested in getting into the security industry, so we had nobody that was interested in that. We did speak about opportunities for full-time employment or even part-time employment, where we would train people, get them a security license, uniform them, they could work part-time during the summer, and then we could use them part-time during the, when they're going back to school, or people that were looking for full-time employment, but they still had no connections. So it's frustrating for me because I have positions that do lead to opportunities for people. As I think I might have mentioned before, my boss started as an officer. He has no college degree, and he's running the company. So we are very open to promoting people. So I think what that tells me, as a person that has jobs that can't get anybody that's interested, is that we need to do a better job of explaining maybe what some of these opportunities are, and how it may sound like you're a security guard, but you could be making, $18 an hour at JFK with full family benefits. You could be a supervisor making, $40,000, $50,000 a year, and you can be promoted on to senior management positions. But there's a disconnect, because the results now are that I've been trying to reach out to get candidates, but haven't gotten any. So I think that's something we ought to work on, because we could take that number from 700 to 1,000 or 1,500 if we could figure that problem out.
Yeah, do you have any insight on what happens, how this gets marketed?
As you may know, with Ladders for Leaders, That runs a little differently. These are young people who have had previous work experience, are on track to going to college or are currently in college. They generally want to participate in a professional internship that aligns with their career goals. So what they have in mind in terms of what they'd like to do. And as we all know, young people may have a particular perception of an industry or have really formed very defined viewpoints of what they'd like to do. And so with Ladders for Leaders, what we try to do is align job opportunities to their career interests. And for young people that we think would benefit from another opportunity outside of their stated career interests, we will try our best to get them on board and explore those opportunities. Ladders is a little tough, it's a smaller program. With SYP though, we have a broad array of young people, and I think that's where the opportunity may lie for us to work closely maybe with providers that do work with young people that would fit maybe an interest or a need or would be the best fit for the industry. So I would love to work with you as we plan for next year on how to better communicate that and working with those providers that may be able to source youth and communicate the job opportunities and really what the field offers for them. And I think it's just really a communication issue. Ladders are maybe a little more difficult because we're working with young people who are just very clear, defined, they're wonderful kids, but they definitely, they're very driven and motivated, and it's sort of trying to get them on the path. But I think with SYP, we definitely have an opportunity, just in terms of numbers, to introduce a number of different industries and opportunities to them.
Caress, could you actually take people who are younger than 18 in these positions? It has to be 18 or over.
They have to be 21.
21, all
And
right, so.
we have a large group of people that are that age that are looking for work. So that's why I say there's a disconnect, and I think how we're explaining some of the opportunities, and I think we need to, as a board, figure out if our goal is to place as many people in career positions where they can, have a great job with good benefits. We need to do a better job of articulating that, because I think there's a disconnect, or I would be filling positions. I've got none right now, and last year I took some interns, but they were there just for the summer, but I have full-time jobs, or even part-time jobs, and people need work, so there's a disconnect somewhere.
Sounds like there's an opportunity outside of SYE.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
What are we
Outside of the summer programs, we operate two programs that focus on disconnected youth. We have a young adult internship program and our federally funded OSY, out of school youth program. And those participants are 16 to 24 years of age. They participate in a short-term internship program, receive additional vocational training, but the outcomes that are assigned to our providers to support the program is to find a placement at the end of the program. So I would be very interested in discussing those opportunities with you. I think that might be a better fit.
Oh, great, look at that. Solved an issue, impressive, nice work, Daphne. So we're going to keep moving along. In other good local news, the mayor made a big announcement about jobs within the last couple of weeks, like last week. We've got some covers in the Times. Everybody got a copy, I think, in their email of material. And Barb, are you going to tell us about it?
I am. Good morning, everyone.
Here we go.
Morning. So, as Mark said, last week the mayor made a pretty big announcement about the city's intention to create 100,000 good jobs over the next 10 years through the use of city actions. I was part of the working group that put the report together, but importantly, the connection that I made was to the Career Pathways report that the Office of Workforce Development issued in 2014. As you know, that Career Pathways report articulated a plan that would create a system that supported young people and adults to achieve their career aspirations by using city assets to create a demand-driven system of training and education leading to good jobs. As you can see in this slide, this is the career pathway graphic that sort of articulates what that looks like from the beginnings of those who need adult basic education all the way up to the associate's and bachelor's degree. Today, we're going to focus a little bit on that last mile, if you will, the associate's and bachelor's degree, but that is in no way a sense that we're going to be ignoring the bottom part of this ladder. I think maybe in another meeting, maybe in the next meeting, we'll talk about the other parts of the ladder, which are equally as important, if not as important as the last mile, and will include, obviously, the rich and vibrant community of community-based organizations that we all care deeply about and who are doing tremendous work in the community. So that's that will be coming, but today what we want to focus on with our partners at CUNY is the importance of the post-secondary credential in an environment where middle-skilled jobs are in many ways requiring those credentials, and how does the board, how does CUNY, how does the Office of Workforce Development work together with all of our other agency partners to get to that end goal. So I'm going to spend a few minutes talking a little bit about the plan itself. In a period of near full employment, one could raise your eyebrows and say, why are we putting a jobs plan out there? And I just want to quote the mayor in his opening letter of the report. He basically said that access to the good paying jobs of the new economy is far from equal. Hundreds of thousands of working New Yorkers struggle to earn enough to raise a family in this city. And the jobs and sectors that historically supported our middle class are in tremendous upheaval. These challenges cut to the heart of the city we want to be. So I think that with that quote, we look at what is the role of the Workforce Development Board, what is the role of the Office of Workforce Development in making sure that the 100,000 jobs that are going to be created over the next 10 years are accessible to the New Yorkers that we all care about, that right now probably can't access those jobs because they're either unskilled, underemployed, or don't have the right credential. So let me tell you a little bit about the plan. It focuses on a set of defined sectors and good jobs that, if we do our job well, should give tremendous opportunity to New Yorkers to access this set of jobs and careers and thrive in the city. It focuses on city levers like property and tax incentives to stimulate job creation in 4 sectors. The 4 sectors, I should probably, I'm sorry, I forgot that I'm actually forwarding these slides at the same time. So these are the 4 sectors. IT, tech, with a focus on cybersecurity, healthcare and life sciences, industrial and manufacturing jobs, and then creative and cultural sectors. The last piece being space for, the actual space for jobs for the future. Why did we pick these 4? And if you recall in the Career Pathways report, I might be a little all over the place, but in the Career Pathways report, the city stood up industry partnerships, 3 of whom match up with the 4 verticals that we're going to be focusing on in the 100,000 jobs. Why did we choose these 4 sectors? First, they're growing in New York City. A high percentage of the jobs in these sectors pay $50,000 a year or more. That was the definition that we used for what is a good job in this report. And we believe that that the city with its levers can accelerate growth in these industries and create more good jobs. So we're going to be looking actively to see where we can pull levers to accelerate growth of these industries in the city. I'll give you a very quick example on life sciences. We have a lot of entrepreneurs in biomedical science that seed their companies in the city. We also have a corridor up the east side of Manhattan that has probably some of the most brilliant minds in biomedical, pharmaceutical research that exist in the country, if not the world. So we've got Rockefeller University, Sloan Kettering, New York Hospital, and a lot of entrepreneurs want to stay in the city as they grow and scale their companies, but we've actually lost a number of companies when they start scaling because we don't have the space. We certainly, and more particularly, we don't have the wet lab space that these biomedical companies need in order to continue their work. So the life sciences investment is to create spaces for these entrepreneurs to grow their companies. We want these folks to stay here. They want to stay here, but we don't have the space and we don't have the facilities that they need to do their jobs and to scale their companies. So it's an example of how we can seed with the city levers an industry that is starting in New York, but ultimately at this point moves out to California, to Boston, where there are facilities that are more accommodating for the industry. All right, so I talked to you about the jobs. Now here's the challenge. The challenge is that in New York City, we have almost 6 million adults, that's not the challenge, that are over 25 or above, but 800,000 of them have some college but no degree. That doesn't even begin to count those that either don't have a high school diploma at all, about 1.2 million of those, and then another over 1 million who have a high school diploma but no college experience. So we've got a large, by any stretch of the imagination, a large group of individuals that we care very, very much about, that we want to at least begin to seed their entry into and the opportunity to get these jobs. This is actually, I think, my last slide, but what's important here in this particular environment of middle skill jobs is that 65% of the jobs that are going to be created in the middle skill environment are going to require a post-secondary degree. So while there are certainly 35% that won't necessarily require that, and certainly I believe strongly that in the 100,000 jobs, good jobs that we create through this effort, there will be many, many other jobs as well that will not require a post-secondary degree. But today we're just going to focus on that particular piece, that requires a post-secondary, and moving into the middle skill jobs that, that not only pay $50,000 but also put folks on a career path. With that, I think it's important for me to recognize my colleagues here at the table from CUNY, who are going to talk a little bit about the institution, but also how they are excited about partnering with us to bring folks into the CUNY system and then out towards these jobs. I think this is a great opportunity with the 100,000 Jobs Report to focus our efforts to get folks through this system. Not to, as I said, and I really, really want to emphasize this because maybe at the next meeting we can talk a little bit more about the other part of this ladder and how other organizations and our system will work to accommodate and serve them. But today we're talking about CUNY, and I want you all to hopefully support the work that we're doing to try to get folks into that post-secondary environment. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Angie Campbell. Oh, John Molescu, your fellow board member who's been here for many years.
Good morning. Les told me I should have worn a tie, but I probably didn't because now Angie's working at CUNY and she probably told me it was okay. That's not exactly right, but I will start by welcoming Angie to CUNY officially as our new university dean for continuing educational workforce development. I couldn't be more delighted to have her join our team. I know her from her work in the city of Bristol, so I'm just delighted to be here for a couple of months. I've been at CUNY for 45 years, so there's a large difference between that, and most of my time has been spent in adult and continuing education, and also working to try and shake up this big, great university, challenging the status quo, trying to figure out how to get people to get to the finish line, working with the public schools, and pretty much working with every city agency that we have. And I've been kind of an inside critic of the university as well. Today, that's not going to be the case. Today, I am going to be kind of a spokesperson for why CUNY is so incredibly important to this city, and also incredibly important to the mayor's new initiative. And I'm going to start and then hand it to Angie and Jane McKillop, who is the Dean of School Continuing and Professional Studies at Lehman College. But I'm going to give kind of a brief overview. I generally don't do PowerPoints, but there's so many specific points about CUNY that I want to talk about that I am going to do that. And I guess, yeah, okay. So you're fine, Jane. So let me just talk a little bit about this university that I think is the kind of the economic engine that drives this city. So we're 25, we're a centralized system, but with lots of colleges. So we have 11 colleges, senior colleges that offer baccalaureate programs, and 7 community colleges, and then a bunch of other schools, an honors college, the Graduate Center that does PhDs. We have a school of law, and a school of journalism, and a graduate school of public health, a school of professional studies, school of medicine. I happen to be the dean of the School of Professional Studies. I'm also the senior university dean for academic affairs in the central office. But if you think of the scale of this place, you're talking over 500,000 students. So 275,000 degree, another 250,000 non-degree, and bigger than the city of Boston. So you realize the impact that we have with 45,000 employees and 6,700 full-time faculty. Now, I'm starting with this because probably it's the most important thing that has happened to CUNY in the good news side probably in years. Raj Chetty from Stanford, an incredibly important researcher, in January issued a study that looked at 43 million students nationally across a 14-year period from the time they started college, and he followed them for 14 years. And he followed them whether they graduated or not. And what he found was that CUNY was and every college in the United States, for-profit, non-profit, big, small, elite, and non-elite, and found that 6 of our colleges at CUNY rank in the top 10 of institutions offering the students the highest level of economic mobility. And what he meant by that was students who started at the bottom 20% of the income scale, and over that period went to the top 3/5. The numbers going to the top 5th are not incredibly high, although CUNY is 6th in the country in that as well. But a sense of why this university is so incredibly important. And again, we've it's a little misleading, but we do say that we've launched more students into the middle class than all 8 Ivy Leagues, plus Stanford, Duke, MIT, Chicago. Now, obviously, we're a lot bigger. Nonetheless, that is our mission, and that is what we've done for so many years. So what is CUNY? 24 campuses, 280 buildings, 1 million graduates in the past 50 years. Look at this one figure. 20% of the city construction today is at CUNY facilities. It's a staggering figure. 2.7 billion in projects, there are 14,000 jobs and so forth. And then we account for a third of the business and finance degrees, a third of the public school teachers. I would say the same about nurses and accountants and on and on. You go into a dental office, dental hygienist is a CUNY graduate. So we are everywhere, and you cannot go through a day in this city without going through our graduates. So we generate every year. Now that's 47,000. It's an outdated figure. The one graduation in this past May, June, we were over 50,000 graduates. And the thing about the 50,000 graduates at CUNY, 95% of them stay in this city. They do not leave. They do not go back to California. They do not go back to Boston or Philadelphia. So it's incredibly important. And then you could see and we highlighted some of the programs, 5,300 awarded each year in business, and 9,600 computer science and information technology. And you can read them by yourselves. Obviously, healthcare is a huge part of our student population. And then you think, well, who are our students? 42% first-generation college attendees. 43% of students speak a language other than English. We just 100 plus languages. 37% born outside the mainland. We're majority women of color. And so you see 76% of the body minority or underrepresented groups. And a lot of our students work less than used to. Because the high school graduation rates have gone up a lot in this city, and because of that, a lot of students are coming more directly to our students, and they're a bit younger. we have dropped in adult students, which is something that Angie and I are focused on very much to try and reverse that trend. And we're unique also in that we get 75% of our students from one system. There is no other place in this country where that is the case. And then, of course, large numbers of our students are poor and come from low-income backgrounds. 38% households less than 20,000. Hard to imagine that, but it is a figure that we have, that we can show. And I guess the other thing is our students don't generally graduate with debt. A lot of those students, 60% or so, 65% go free because of their income. They get TAP and they get Pell. And so they will, a lot of them go. And then our tuition is still, although higher than it ever has been, a lot lower than most places, of course, lower than all of the privates, both, and proprietary and for-profit schools as well. I put this out there because of the mayor's initiative and our interest. We're trying to get not just students into STEM disciplines, but students through STEM disciplines, and also students who typically are not in STEM disciplines. African American, Latino students are underrepresented in those disciplines, and that has to change, and we're trying to do that as well. But you can see the figures. There's a whole lot of emphasis on STEM. This is a little bit off the track, but really not. I'm involved with a whole host of programs that are trying to address how to get students to the finish line. And, some of that we have, huge efforts with the New York City Public Schools. College Now, high school students taking college credit classes. We had, I think, 23,000 students taking college credit classes this year at virtually every one of our colleges. We have these CTE schools, 7 of them that we run in cooperation with business and industry as partners and the public school system. The most well-known in terms of publicity is the P-Tech school with IBM, but we have those with also National Grid and Con Ed and Presbyterian Hospital, New York Hospital, and SAP, and others as well. We also, and my involvement has always been in working in things like literacy and high school equivalency and second language acquisition, and where I got my start at CUNY. And I guess probably the program we are most noted for is this ASAP program, which just, has broken all of our records with graduation rates, in a random controlled study and all kinds of studies. We're getting 55% of the students 3-year graduates in our associate degree programs. The national urban 3-year rate is 16%. The comparison group that we have is about 28%. And we're getting over 55%. There was a really nice story in the New York Times last Sunday by David Kirk in the News of the Week in Review on CUNY Start and ASAP, and that particular program is being replicated now in 3 other states around the country, and we're really proud of what we've accomplished. I was speaking to Gary Jenkins early today about CUNY Edge, and incredibly appreciative of HRA's support for college students now, which is a change, and certainly welcomed. Obviously, if you can get public assistance recipients through getting associate and bachelor's degrees, you have them on a path to middle class life. And we're trying to get involved with prior learning credits and others. This is just a sprinkling of the programs that we do. We have agreements with virtually every city agency to work together to try and figure out ways of giving workers professional development and career advancement. I think I am done. I'm going to pass this on because we want to be able to get an opportunity to have questions. I would just simply end by going back to where I started. I really do believe that CUNY is so crucially important to this city and to the future of this city. And it has always been a vehicle to get low-income folks into out of low-wage jobs and preventing them from perhaps going into low-wage jobs to begin with. And so, you know, that's our commitment, and I'm going to pass this on to Angela.
So what I wanted to add to the picture, when John talked about the depth and the breadth of the system on the degree side, what I wanted to add was really the adult and continuing ed side of the house as well. So often we'll hear about this described as the non-degree side. This is really the professional, credential, and certification side of the house. It's really, quite frankly, where the most entrepreneurial programs, I think, are happening at the university. It's the area of the university where we're able to hire industry professionals to adjunct, to be teaching for our students. We're able to kind of launch classes typically within months. If we have a new industry partnership, it's where we work with a lot of businesses to create kind of worker training. So we offer the kind of skilling, reskilling, and upskilling within the adult and continuing ed world. I think the challenge within CUNY is always both kind of getting folks to grasp the breadth of what we offer, but then breaking it down. And so in terms of just what this means and what this side of the house at CUNY means, we have 18 of our 25 colleges house continuing education departments. And so really these professional certifications, they specialize really in every sector. This isn't even a complete list, but healthcare, IT, business, manufacturing, industrial, all kind of are housed within this side of CUNY. The scale is pretty massive. It's $122 million through tuition and through revenues. And so just to kind of think, and what does this mean? So 10,000 of the students who go through this side, it's their gateway into transferring over to the degree side of the program. Another way to look at it, 5,000 folks last year were trained through 1199 through the continuing education side of the house. John mentioned a lot of our work with city agencies. About 3,000 city workers who are kind of in law enforcement get upgraded every year through John Jay, as an example. The other piece is this is a real bread and butter within our community college system. So out of those 245,000 enrollments, our 6 community colleges that have continuing education departments are responsible for about 120,000 of those enrollments. The balance of the 18 to 12 senior and comprehensive schools are responsible for the other 120,000. And what's helpful, I think, about the system is that our colleges are, each of the different 18 programs, folks are good at different things, right? So John Jay is very much kind of focused on continuing and professional development on the law enforcement side. We've got Lehman, who's incredibly good at the healthcare front. LaGuardia, BMCC, very strong in tech-related continuing education programs. School of Professional Studies really was founded with the entire premise to serve kind of adult workers in a variety of areas in healthcare and IT and other programs. This is the side of the house where we work really closely, typically with the industry partnerships. So NIACH has been an incredible partner with us. And again, I think the idea here on the continuing education side is work to be responsive to industry, to be responsive often to adult learners, and then work in collaboration with the faculty side. So that with NIACH, a lot of our programs will start on the continuing education side in credit-bearing courses or certificates, and then we'll work with the faculty to kind of make sure that we can transfer folks over time to an associate's degree level. And so that's kind of what that side, and Jane will talk in more detail about what that looks like at Lehman. I think there are 2 opportunities for this group and for the city to work, and John mentioned one of them, is really looking to re-enroll those 800,000 adults that have some college, but they don't have a degree or a certification. And so I think that we're going to be really focusing and working with Barb and with Chris over the next year, thinking about how do we recognize and kind of more at scale work with folks who have military experience, professional licenses, and who have work experience that really we can equate to and quantify in credits and get folks towards degree and certification completion. The other opportunity is, again, continuing to work with the industry partnerships, continuing to work with, and we'll talk a little bit later about cybersecurity as a really great example of an area where we can take adult workers who are skilled in IT, give them the right certifications by partnering with industry to get folks kind of into some of these emerging areas. And so that's kind of to round out that picture. Wanted to talk a little bit just about what career pathways, what we would like career pathways at CUNY to look like. And so this is a bit of a vision statement. We've got some aspect of this work happening, but I think our job over the next few years is to really bring this to scale. And so really our vision at CUNY is we don't really talk about it in terms of a credit and non-credit side of the house. I think for every student within CUNY, we want to be able to really work with business and make sure that there's the key elements to a career pathway, which are making sure that we've got exploration activities for all of our students. For a young student at community college, that might be literally the basics of understanding what jobs are, what salaries are, what different types of occupations they can move into. For an adult who's coming back into our system, career mapping might be literally the reverse. Understanding what's their experience, what are their licenses that they're coming in with, what do they have to take, and what could they take within CUNY to upgrade themselves to a middle-class job. Being kind of working for a while in the world of workforce development, career preparation is universal. Whether you're a 19-year-old, whether you're a 55-year-old, you need help figuring out how to market yourself for that next job. And so our challenge within CUNY is to make this accessible to everyone at scale in a way that we leverage technology so that we are really preparing folks to be competitive in front of employers. And again, working with employers to make this work. The third piece that's a really strong commitment of our chancellor is, and even the governor and the mayor have all talked about experiential learning. So this is the work that's hands-on, that's sometimes in the classroom, can be out of the classroom. We've got some great examples in tech. There's a company called Infor that worked with the School of Professional Studies. This year will train 200 individuals in database management tools that their company offers, with the hope that after 12 weeks of kind of evening classes, folks will get hired by Infor, will get hired by Infor clients, and if not, will get hired kind of with really strong experiential kind of hands-on skills that they gain through a company. For adults, this might look like clinical placements in the healthcare field, really just making sure that those first three elements are what we need to make our students competitive. Again, whether that's a young adult, whether that's an adult who's returning. And again, if our students are competitive, those internships and those full-time job opportunities are going to be ones that employers are working with us and really trust and know how to find our talent. And so that's what we want to do. Again, the challenge within CUNY is how do we work from 25 institutions, 500,000 students, and make our talent accessible to employers. And so the sector approach is the good old standby, been around and been the organizing principle, I think, for workforce for a good 25 years. It's the way that we are going to make our students and our talent accessible to employers. And so when you start thinking about, or when we start thinking about career pathways and making it easy for employers, our employers don't want to have to negotiate 25 different relationships to figure out where the talent is at CUNY. And so our job kind of to make that career pathway model real is to really organize our work by about 10 sectors that we think are important, that are growing, that pretty much align to what EDC and the Mayor's Office of Workforce Development is focusing on. And then to start to group our schools and our talent kind of by these sectors. We have very strong programs in technology. In finance, this year we started a program with Gutman Community College and JP Morgan Chase to really pipeline folks into commercial and retail banking. We've got wild plans to kind of take that across to other financial institutions and really to other occupations within JP Morgan Chase and other anchor institutions. In cultural institutions, we place every year probably 130 folks in our city's anchor cultural institutions and museums. We've talked about healthcare. Literally thousands of folks are placed both in allied healthcare and our hospitals. In the nonprofit community organizations, we work with 120 CBOs. We place 800 folks a year in community-based organizations and paid work experiences. There's much more that we can be doing there. And in the public sector, John mentioned, we work with 18 agencies to place nearly 600 folks in jobs every year in IT and call center positions. This July, we have our first public service fellowship, so a pipeline for full-time CUNY grads to go into IT positions with Do It. And so these are all kind of aspects of programs that exist, that organize by sector, that grab students from multiple colleges, but what we want to do is bring this work to scale. And again, I think the guiding principle here is how to make this work really accessible to employers, how to make employers not feel like they have to navigate 25 colleges, but really have us at CUNY Central playing that sort of quarterbacking role. And then finally, before I turn it over to Jane, just wanted to talk and kind of connect back up to what Barb started on with the mayor's jobs plan. And so we were really excited by the jobs plan. I think it makes sense for us. It very much aligns with, I think, what we've wanted to do, what we have been doing, and I don't think it represents new pilots per se. I think it represents really scaling up what we've had some success at doing. And so at least the 5 areas that kind of jump off and jump out of the plan as places where we can work very closely with the city. The call to double graduates in computer science from 1,000 to 2,000, that's very much about hiring faculty. But again, I think the goal isn't let's just work on the number of 2,000, it's how do we make those 2,000 graduates competitive? How do we give them real life experience? How do we make sure that they're getting picked up at wages that are competitive, that are accessible to employers, and that those employers are working really closely with us? And again, I'll mention the industry partnerships. The Tech Talent Pipeline has been a really strong partner to us, and we are excited to continue that work. In cybersecurity, really great opportunity for us. We couldn't agree more. In the same way that Washington, D.C. is a really strong cybersecurity hub for the government and kind of defense contracting industry, we should be a huge hub for the financial services and insurance industries. This could be a great opportunity for us to create certificate programs for adult experienced IT workers, and we would love to work really closely with you to make that happen. We've got some good work at John Jay that was cited in the report, and talked to my colleague Cass Conrad, who also works for John and focuses on all of our early college work. She threw out the idea earlier this week. The jobs plan is focused on 10 years. We should potentially consider a P-Tech for cybersecurity. So again, making sure that we're looking at the continuum of not only working to get folks into the field, but also working on our high schools to make that pathway really clear. Barb talked about life sciences. This is an area where we have 40,000 plus STEM graduates. If you're not going to medical school and you're not going to be going to graduate school, but you're a chem or bio major, what do you do? And so we have an amazing amount of talent within CUNY, and we're really excited to make sure that we're working with businesses to really bring those opportunities to our students and to really inform curriculum in the classroom. Lastly, apprenticeships, really important. We've worked with NIACH to launch over the past 2 years with $11.99 2 apprenticeships. This year we have state funding to launch 3, working both with our continuing education and our degree programs. And so this is going to be an area where we'd love to continue to work with the city, not only in healthcare, but in industrial and in the tech sectors as well. And so really that's what we're looking at. I think the takeaways here are we want to make our system accessible. We want to do the work so that employers don't have to navigate 25 colleges, and we want to scale up what's working. In my work going to the 18 colleges and just really getting to know our adult and continuing ed programs, I was really impressed at the Lehman program. And I think what you'll hear from Jane is they have an incredibly comprehensive array of services for adults. And I think as we contemplate how do we get more adults not only into the credential, but also kind of through the college piece, I think what you're going to hear from Jane is the model exists. Again, there's not new work or new pilots that we have to think about. I think it's really scaling what we already have within our system. So here you go, Jane.
Good morning. Good morning. It's a real pleasure to be here. Some familiar faces and some new faces, so just really great to be here. What you've seen this morning is a sort of an overview, and then gradually we've been funneling down, and now we're going to look at what what CUNY can offer right at the college level. And so I'm going to be talking about what we do at Lehman. And last year we served 13,000 community residents. As a point of comparison, there were 12,000 undergraduates. So as you saw from the earlier data, it's about the same number of non-credit and credit students. And they took all kinds of different courses. In some cases, they simply came in for a workshop. In others, they took a lengthy training program. We had small businesses who came in to find out about funding, about loans. We had people took preparation for tests. They took the actual tests. We have a testing center. And we provided all of these services through 5 different components. The components of the adult degree program are continuing education, which is the retail programs, the workforce education, which is grant and contract funded, our small business development center, and then we have an innovation lab with a business incubator and a virtual reality training center. And those are at 2 locations in the Bronx. One is at the beautiful Lehman campus, and the other is at the, dare I say, equally beautiful Grand Concourse, 2501 Grand Concourse in the heart of the Bronx. Both very, very accessible. So our adult degree program, last semester we registered 1,121 students. Now, think of those as some of the 800,000 who had some college but don't have a degree. And it's a special program because it makes college much more accessible for adults who are working, who have kids, who have all kinds of other responsibilities. You have to be over 25, but other than that, we'll take you with whatever credits you've got. We have credit for prior learning. students take a portfolio course, they can then get up to 15 more credits for their portfolio. So this again is building on what they bring to the table. And we advertise it through our flyer, of which you have a copy. Your kid is going to college, what about you? And this is been a very successful campaign to bring in a lot more adult students to participate in the program, and we are growing by leaps and bounds. In addition to the bachelor's degree, we also have a master's degree in liberal arts. Now, in addition to the adult degree program, we have the continuing education, and I brought our catalogue. So as you can see, all roads lead to Lehman. Well, if you're in the Bronx, they do. We're optimistic. So this is all of our retail courses. It will tell you about the huge variety of IT and health courses and different sorts of training programs that we have at many different levels. Also, we have a summer camp for children, we have teen courses, we have lots of test preparation. We have high school equivalency courses, and we have English as a second language. In addition, we have the workforce education, and here we have contracts, or we have grant funding for employees and members, particularly 1199, and this gives both credit and non-credit. So you have the opportunity to do degree completion programs, you can do non-credit credential training, and then college entry programs. And those are sort of bridge programs where you're taking a credit course, but you're getting a lot of additional help. So you might be taking a math course that's 3 credits, but it's 60 hours, because we're actually giving you a lot more instruction in order to move you through. And our partnerships are very varied. In addition to 1199, we've got Jewish Home Care, several hospitals, and then we've got funding from Small Business Services and the Workforce Development Initiative. So it's a huge variety. We are looking to serve adults who don't have to pay for the course. So these are, if you like, the free courses. The continuing ed, you have to pay for, or you have scholarships for that. These are free, paid for by employers. We also have the Small Business Development Center, and here we work with small businesses. We do quality business counseling, we do contracts, we help businesses with their growth plans. We also have space available for them. And then the 5th component is CUNY on the Concourse, and this is, as I say, our actually really lovely building with fantastic facilities, where we have our virtual training academy and development lab. We also have an innovation lab where we have all sorts of pilots. We have a business incubator where we have 30 startup businesses that was funded through the Bronx Business Bridge. We have a center for entrepreneurship, and then we have the International Entrepreneur Initiative. We also have a testing center, so we give tests for Pearson VUE and CLEP, which is is the college level entry program, so that you can get credit by taking a test, which is organized by the College Board. It's through the College Board. And we're shortly going to become a TOEFL testing center, which will match beautifully with our ESL program. And then we have lots of nursing labs, instructional space, and office space. So how does all this come together? Okay, that was the exciting bit. So we think of ourselves not as a bridge. We don't think of ourselves as 5 freestanding little medieval castles with moats and drawbridges and things. No. We work together. We work as part of a jigsaw puzzle, and all of the different pieces come together. And I want to illustrate that by telling you about some of our students. So this is Maria Kamaj. So she came to the adult degree program, ADP, as a freshman after she'd had a very successful career as an events planner. She was terrible at math, and so this was a huge problem for her, but we managed, she would not have been eligible, therefore, for admission to the college proper. She had to come through the adult degree program. She maintained a very high GPA. She got the maximum allowable credits for prior learning, so she got 15 free credits, great bonus. She completed her bachelor's in 2.5 years, and she's actually now got her master's degree. And she actually works in the provost's office. So you can see how this plays out in somebody's life. She had a successful career, but she wanted to come back to college and get her degree. Now we have Stephanie, who is one of our continuing ed students, and she worked in banking. As you can see, she's not in banking anymore because she realized that was not where she wanted to be. So she enrolled in the clinical medical assistant program and became a National Health Career Associate, passing the exam. She was then hired as a CCMI at her podiatrist office, and she became a member of 1199. So that opened up all kinds of possibilities for her, because then she was able to interview for her current position, and now she's hoping to come back to Lehman with help from 1199 to become a nurse. So you can see how the pieces are all fitting together. You come in as one sort of student, but then you have all these other opportunities just by virtue of being at Lehman and being on campus. And just one more success story. This is Kirk, who transferred to Lehman from Hunter College. What we often find is that students come to Lehman and they look around and they think, people here look like me, I fit here, I'm going to come here as a student, and this was just another example. He's now being hired by Google, and he's working, so he's also supporting Lehman students. So this gives you a sense of how, as I say, all the pieces fit together. And I want to finish by telling you about a new initiative that we have. We have a virtual reality training academy. And this was set up in partnership with Eon Reality, which is an international business that provides equipment, teaching, and program support. And they partnered with Lehman, and we gave them space, we give them administrative support. They gave us all of the computers. They're sending teachers from Manchester, England, who come to teach the course. The course is absolutely brutal. It's punishing schedule. 5 nights a week, all day Saturday, 11 months. And this is just horrendous, but we have got 19 students who think that we are giving them a banquet every night. I have never seen such happy students. It's just fabulous. You walk in and the atmosphere is just alive with excitement. So they started off doing 3 months coding training. They're in their 4th week. We charge them for that. Absolutely nominal, as you know. IT training is an extremely expensive commodity. We charge $4.99 for CUNY students, $5.99 for others, and then the rest is free. So they start off doing the coding. I was in the class the other night and I was finding out how to make a Fanta can turn a somersault. So these little cans are turning somersaults, and the students have worked out how to get them to actually sort of move around. It was extremely amusing. You had a choice of Fanta, Pepsi, or another sort of can that you could actually animate. We started, as I say, May the 16th, and the outcomes are really where I'm looking for to find out what's going to happen next. We know that Eon will hire at least 3 students. We think others of them may well get teaching jobs. We're looking out to see what else is going to happen to them. We have Silver Cup and York Studios moving to the Bronx. We think there will be jobs for them in that direction. And just a final note, we've a few words from Michael Brenner, who is one of our virtual reality students, and he presented to the Board of Trustees on Monday night, and he described what the program meant for him, and I think I'll let you read this, because he very eloquently describes his own excitement at this new opportunity. But this is a terrific example of the sort of partnership that Angie was talking about and that CUNY does so well, that we are working with a very different sort of organization, but we are working very successfully with them. We're bringing business to the Bronx, we're bringing work to the Bronx, we're helping people to move to where they want to be. So thank you very much.
So I just want to thank John, Jane, and Angie for their presentation. Hopefully it gave you a great lens into what is a huge jewel in the crown of economic mobility for New Yorkers in this city. So, and how important they will be in this partnership as we try to move and increase the number of folks who we care about going into middle skill jobs. We have about 10 minutes, so questions, comments, love to, hey. How are you?
So I have a question about NYC and saw a presentation from Angie on it. And can you expand a little bit on this? It seems that on the release of the report for the 100K, it seems to be much more expansive than the 3 that you outlined here.
Yeah, the apprenticeship?
Yeah.
So the notion, I mean, we've been talking a lot about apprenticeships on the board for quite a while. I think the mayor was really excited about the notion of trying to really inject some investment in creating a more of an apprenticeship environment in New York City, an apprenticeship-friendly environment. It probably will be more expansive. We do want to make sure that the apprenticeship spans the 4 sectors that we're focused on for the 100K jobs, but more than likely it will go beyond that. And what we're doing is, you'll see probably later on in the fall, the investment in apprenticeships will be is sort of like a pilot to try to get companies to come to the table and have the conversation with us. And if we're successful in sort of getting them going, we will continue to invest in creating more apprenticeships in New York. I don't know if that answered your question.
But the plan now is
Yeah.
to do the 3 apprenticeships in healthcare.
That's our state funding that we were doing regardless, and well before
Oh,
the,
that's a CUNY.
I was just gonna say, that's our plan. So that
That's the
is-
CUNY plan, right,
yeah,
sorry.
So that's
So that
separate.
is separate
Yes.
from the mayor's plan of apprenticeship
Yeah.
NYC. which is a
Correct.
bucket of things.
Yeah, well, we'll try to merge these things. I
Right.
mean, it makes a lot
We'll
of
be
sense
part
to
of
not be
that,
spinning
but
off.
that is, I would hope, ultimately just a piece of.
Yes,
of
yes,
a
yes.
larger-
I mean, we definitely are, SBS is looking at some of the apprenticeships in tech, for example, that don't necessarily require a post-secondary degree, trying to get those folks into tech. So, yeah. Anna.
Hello? So I first wanted to start by just giving my testimony, which is that my husband, it was funny listening to this because he sort of, other than being a white male, I apologize on his behalf, he fits the very much the profile. He was an adult college dropout who then went back to school at Brooklyn College. I think he started part-time, finished his degree. We were paying student loans off of his original college, but totally loan-free, and then went on to become a teaching fellow, and is now just finishing his 3rd year as a special ed math teacher at a high school in Brooklyn. So I feel like it's a very good example of somebody who went from having very inconsistent employment to contributing, I believe, in a valuable way to the city of New York. But what I was curious about, it sounds to me like there's 2 aspects of this, of what I'm getting out of here, which is one, obviously an investment in new programs that CUNY is doing, which sound awesome. And then this question of how do you get these 8,000 students in the target demographic, and I'm just curious what efforts are being, what does that look like? And is there something, I think Chris brought up this question of you have this need and then this solution, but how do the 2 come together, and what does that look like?
You're talking about the 800,000 folks in the city who have some college.
Yeah, is it 800,000? Okay, I got it. Took off 2 zeros, my apologies.
Yeah. So one, we have to figure out how to give them more opportunity all over the place. And so one, let me even back up. One, we have to let them know we exist. And 2, that we're friendly to students who have credits in the past, that we will honor those credits, and that we will make it easier to come back to school. And that's one of Angie's major, responsibilities and goals. We have some schools, Lehman is an example, the School of Professional Studies is another example that does that well. But because we have not had to fight for students in the past, particularly because the Department of Ed has graduated so many more, our enrollments have gone up a huge amount in the last 12 years. Now they're plateauing, and maybe that will be part of the incentive. So we have to think a bit differently. We have to offer more prior learning assessment. We have to do far more in online education. And again, SPS does a lot of that, but the other schools are just beginning. And we have to create opportunities for students to, and this together with business, to have employers understand the importance of supporting students who come back to school. So there's not any one project. There is a recommitment to emphasize, that 800,000 for not always altruistic reasons. I mean, those are future students who will pay tuition. I would just add some of the problems with that, and I don't know about your husband, but almost all of those folks work. Many of those folks work in lower wage jobs, and very few opportunities for part-time students who work to get financial aid. And so in fact, what looks like a small tuition is not for someone making $32,000 a year. And so all that is to say, not easy, but we are more focused on it than we have ever been before. It's kind of I didn't really want to punt on that issue, but I want to say we don't have all the answers yet.
John, I love your cheerleader role today. It's great.
Yeah.
But I'm going to ask you to put your old hat back on for a second. So, I mean, it's amazing. It's, very optimistic. It's great. But what is it that CUNY hasn't been doing so great that needs to change?
My biggest focus, and I think probably I've shared this with lots of you around the table, is that we don't graduate enough of the students who start. And that is the single most important, it's the #1 priority of our chancellor. He has, in his new strategic framework, said we're going to double the number of graduates at the community college level, and we're going to increase the rate of graduates at the four-year colleges, I think, by 10%, 10 percentage points. We have improved in that at the four-year colleges, but we're still not nearly where we need to be. A school like Baruch, which has gotten better and better students, the 6-year graduation rate is about 65%. Other schools go down from there. And ASAP has made a huge difference at the community college level, and we have, with the support of the city, huge support of the mayor, we have gone from 4,000 students to 18,000 students, and we will be at 25,000 students in that program. And so I'm confident that the community college doubling will happen, but I focus just specifically on that. And then the second thing for me is leveling the playing field for students getting jobs. We compete with all kinds of people from all over this country who want to come to New York to get jobs. And our students often don't have the networks that other students have, more privileged students have. And so our wages for our graduates are not as good as some of the wages of people coming from private colleges and outside the city. And we are committed to doing that, and we need, and again, going back and not putting too much pressure on Angie, the idea of building the relationships with business to understand that our students are every bit as talented and probably a bit hungrier than the students who may come from more elite schools. So those are the two things that I think are most important: graduation rates and getting our students into the job market.
Thank you.
Okay, go right.
We got right here. Please don't stand up. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
John, I don't know if this question is for you or Angie. As you know, I've worked with Marriott for about 23 years, and we recently acquired Starwood. So now we have about 30 hotels in the city. And regrettably, anytime there's a management position or leadership position available, we tend to look outside the state, because we can't get candidates within New York City or New York State. So looking at your programs, I don't see a lot of tourism initiatives. So I'm just wondering, do you have any plans to maybe take a look at the tourism? Because I also teach at NYC.
Sure. Let me start if Angie you want to lead. I started my career at what is now New York City College of Technology, and their hospitality and tourism program is truly one of the best in the country. Now I don't know if you hire their students or not.
I used to teach there actually.
Okay. So I begin with that, but we have built relatively new programs at Kingsborough in tourism, and I think LaGuardia has now something in hospitality. So that is one of the areas, but I think perhaps some of it is getting our students to apply and to know, and I think the connection between George, you and Angie to try and figure that out better. I believe we do have a pool of students, they're just not getting it.
Well, I think also one of the challenges is that New York City Tech, they really emphasize on culinary,
Yes.
you know. But the issue is nowadays hotels business is changing.
Yeah.
Most hotels, you have different owners. Right now we have 30 hotels, but I would say we probably have about 20 to 25 different owners. So it's more about real estate versus.
There are jobs available.
Exactly. It's more about knowing real estate, that more so than even dealing with the guests and the
So we need to
employees.
sit down with you.
Okay.
I mean, that is something we need to do and soon.
I'll be happy to.
Yeah, and maybe create some new programs.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. So it sounds like in reading through the data, this is a great target for both today and the future. So I guess my question is, what can this board do to help support it?
Sure, I can, hi Scott, sorry. So I think the quick exchange between George and John that just happened is exactly what we want to happen more, right? And so we think about, I think that we listed the 6 sectors that we have kind of a decent amount of traction in. I mentioned that we really think there's probably 10. So the hospitality kind of sector is definitely kind of one of those others. The creative media space is another one, and kind of industrial transportation are others. We talked about the industry partnerships, and those have been really great partners with us because they are that kind of interface between industry and then kind of translating kind of what those training needs could be in a couple of the sectors. And so I'd say, and a call for kind of more engagement with the industry partnerships. We've been working with the Tech Talent Pipeline and NIASH, and there are other ones, and so that's an opportunity to work with more. I think from a business perspective, as George just mentioned, we want to be able to play that quarterback role where you're not kind of figuring out, you know about City Tech, but perhaps Kingsborough and LaGuardia are new news for you. And so we should be doing that work to figure out and talk to you, what do you actually look for? What do you need? One of the, I think I actually glossed over this, but what we do in the tech sector is something that we want to replicate for every other sector. And what we do within the tech sector that I think is quite smart because it works with our constituents of students, employers, and faculty. We have what we call a CUNY Tech Meetup, 2,000 students, open call to folks who are interested in technology and want to do some exploration. They want to go on site visits. They want to look to industry panels. They want to talk to folks who are kind of doing the jobs that they want to get into. And so that's an opportunity for industry engagement, right? So every time we talk to an industry, it doesn't have to be what's the job that you have that you want to hire our students into. It's really about, can you come to a tech meetup, or can you come to a hospitality meetup, or an industrial kind of student group meetup, open up your industry or your employer or your office to students to do a site visit. Bring in a panel of recent grads or recent hires, some of whom are CUNY students, because we're everywhere, to talk about how you got into the field. And so really kind of breaking that down is something that we would be asking for industry. And I think this board can really help us to kind of understand what are the needs, start to engage with our students on a more regular basis, not just at the hiring front. And I think what we know to be the case is if a student is understanding the amazing opportunities, whether it's in security or hospitality or other sectors, as those students kind of progress through their CUNY career, when it comes time for internships or full-time jobs, you know the students know you, and the matching is a lot easier than if you're just kind of introducing yourself and your company at the very tail end of their CUNY experience. So kind of a long answer, but I think that industry engagement has to start really early on, and it has to start that career exploration stage.
We have not done as good a job as we need to do to connect with business. We simply need to do better, and we need to let the business and industry know that our students are really talented. And then the question is, are there jobs? And which companies really have jobs and which really don't, or don't have a problem filling positions.
Can I also just say that this is, I really feel strongly that this is not going to be a one-shot presentation and then you'll never hear from these guys again. I mean, John obviously sits on the board, but one of the things that I would like you guys to think about on the board is to think about what the evolution of the Workforce Development Board's role is in seeding this. I mean, obviously, Angie and John and Jane believe strongly that they need more connection to industry. And I think that this board represents just that with the industry partnerships. So how does the board evolve to create that place to go for industry expertise and input into the kinds of curricula that are being developed, the degrees that are being granted by the institutions, as well as the host of community-based organizations out there that are doing really important work, training and educating low-income adults and youth in industry-specific skills. So they need that input from industry, and the whole notion of career pathways is to have a demand focus. We're not going to get there without industry participation. So that's where I think this board can land. What I would love to do is think about creating an ad hoc committee of some kind with members of the board to really dive deep with us as we start to continue this conversation, not only with CUNY, but with the broad ecosystem in workforce. So the staff will be reaching out to all you guys to think about if that's a good idea, if you would like to participate, but we'll follow up with you after this meeting.
Sure. So it feels like we have a good line of sight into the sort of financial challenges on the degree side of the house. And we have certain solutions like ASAP, and the problem is very big, but we sort of understand it. I don't know if I understand what's happening on the non-degree side of the house. How are people financing courses? There's scarce dollars, but people actually having to pay more than on the degree side. Many people have low income. So what are we doing? What are your kind of innovations or ideas about how we would help people sort of finance and address other kinds of persistence challenges on that part of the system?
So I would ask Jane and Andy to chime in. On the non-credit side, there are 2 or 3 basic ways we provide service. The largest at some, well, I would say not the largest, but a very large one is that we get money from the city and state and from private sources to provide services for free. And so of the, whatever it was, the 240,000, and they, by the way, they range from basic education literacy through more serious training. And I don't know what numbers.
I think I have a breakout. So it's 122 million is kind of the revenues, and it's about 45 million come from tuition, and then 75 million come from the grants, and essentially that's free, whereas through state or agencies.
Right. So for free, and then, as Jane indicated, $499, and showed you her catalog. Those are courses for students to take for a fee, and they could range from a $50 one session, whatever, to thousands of dollars for high-level training, non-credit. The question of who these programs reach, obviously the free programs reach people who are predominantly low income. Our continuing ed programs, even on the tuition side, are not like NYU and Columbia and different kinds of programs leading directly to jobs. But I would ask Jane to talk specifically one college example.
In the course part of it. Absolutely, yes. So the courses in here, people pay for themselves. Some of them have scholarships from Workforce One, which are sometimes available and sometimes not. From the census, they dried up, as you probably know, earlier in the year. We now have scholarships again, but that was really helpful for people to have those scholarships. We have Access VR, what used to be called VESID. We have some scholarships from them. We have employers paying for their employees to come on an individual basis. So we have quite a number of employees who pay for 1 or 2 people. And then Lehman is also providing some scholarships wherever we can. So you've got a wide diversity, but that only reaches a very small percentage of the people who need.
We do have some third-party pay. Yeah. Unions like 1199 do provide money for their, and those are specific to their own workers. Business provides a bit for employees, more on the training side, but then there are a
I was told by Chris that we have until 10:20. Is that true,
Yeah.
Mark? Yeah. Okay, cool.
Could I follow up on that? So, so I work for Access VR, and we support a lot of individuals in a lot of different kinds of programs. So we've been really promoting certificate programs as an alternative to BPSS. You know, the private schools that go on forever. The big issue for our counselors, I think, over time has been individuals going to these certificate programs, but then not getting connected after that to work from those programs. Are there efforts in the colleges to then go to the next step, which is career placement, et cetera?
We do some of that with our internships, but I have to say that's an area that we really need to beef up.
Because we really want to promote this. I've been, you know, we've had, Barbara came to the office to talk about the certificate programs in CUNY, but this has been something I've been there a long time, and I've heard this over and over again, that, you know, we send people to the proprietary schools because there's somebody there who's, not that they do a great job anyway, but they are going to try to place them, whereas these individuals go to the...
So I would differentiate between the two aspects of funding or not funded programs. That when we get a program dollars from the public sector, SBS or DYCD or whatever, the state, they're generally performance placement standards that are attached to that. And we have to meet them. And if we don't, generally the program disappears. HRA, same thing. But on the tuition level side, where students take courses, generally that tuition level does not pay enough for those kinds of placement services, with some exceptions. And again, it's...
George Wall.
So again, it's something that has to be addressed. And then, of course, you want those certificates to articulate with degree programs as well. And that is happening more, even just, you know, I know at the school that I run, in the area of disability studies, we have a certificate program that you know, goes, connects to a bachelor's program and a master's program. And similarly, now we have a coding certificate that goes into a degree in health information management. So we're looking at it both as a career opportunity for a job as well as education, and we don't do it nearly as well as we need to.
Andy, I have a question for you. The thing that's impressive about all of this, anytime you talk about CUNY scale, right, it's mind-blowing how big you guys are and how many folks are going through CUNY every year. How are you, when you talk about industry partnerships though, how are you thinking about them? Are they wholesale? CUNY-wide, you're going to do an industry partnership in hospitality or cybersecurity, or is it retail? At the Lehman College level or the Hunter College or the Brood, you know, how are you going to organize it, and what's the ask of industry when, you know, are there going to be several different institutions, you know, that are going to have their own partnerships, or is it going to be all housed centrally?
Right.
Wait, can I just step on? Historically, CUNY is, you know, it's been like herding cats, right? You know, every president, every college does its own thing. I mean, doesn't that have to change for this to really be effective?
So there's, great question. I think the way that CUNY Central is best situated to work on university-wide initiatives. And so everything that we're thinking about in terms of a sector approach is how do we bring opportunity to students who are sitting in multiple colleges. And again, what we know about in life sciences, let's use that as an example, we've got some really strong anchor colleges that are excellent in life sciences. And so what we want to do is offer to those students who are sitting at Lehman, at Hunter, at City College, at Bronx Community College, who are kind of in these bio, chem, physics, math majors, how do we bring those students together and let's call it a life science meetup to give them programming to kind of explore careers, to prepare them for industry, to kind of give them workshops, access to employers, to prep them and screen them for internships, and to kind of present those folks who have all of those experiences to life science employers for jobs. And so definitely, yes is the answer to your question. The only way this is going to work at scale is we do a wholesale approach where we're grabbing students from the kind of majors at the different colleges that are kind of excellent in tech or hospitality or life science. The important reason why we have to do this, I think, internally, and this isn't something to be outsourced to someone who knows job placement, is that feedback loop to faculty. And so in the life science example, the kind of faculty chair at Lehman, Pamela Mills, has said, Angie, you can come in and talk to our faculty advisors, the folks who are with our students day in, day out, who students are going to sort of say, what are my job prospects, kind of, if I don't want to be a doctor or if I don't want to go to grad school. Professional development to our faculty to be able to advise students is incredibly important to kind of think about this piece about how we do that. So again, professional development isn't just about Lehman faculty, it'd be about pulling in faculty from across our various colleges to kind of let them understand what are those industry trends, connect industry directly to those faculty so that they're aware of the kind of real life experience that ought to be brought into the campuses. And so that's the kind of wash, rinse, repeat by sector that we're interested in creating. So organize the students, be able to organize employers so that they're not having to kind of figure out which of the schools is good at what. Produce and kind of provide the programming of the experiential learning, the workshops with industry engagement so that we're pulling in those students, offering them something of value. And at that point, we often run, in the tech sector, we'll run the screenings for companies. And so there's this tech company, Cognizant, who came, they said, we want software testers, we want IT support folks. We ran an info session for a couple hundred folks, 300 students across 5 colleges applied. We're doing kind of some really fast screening with Code to Work's help to suss out of those 300 who are we presenting to that employer. And they're going to come from a variety of colleges. And so that's the kind of apparatus that we want to be able to create where it's both open access to all students, but then what we're offering to them and who we're ultimately presenting to employers are folks that we think, to John's point, can be really competitive.
I would add,
at
Les,
those
that
stages.
it's really a balancing act because the idea of herding cats is terrible, and we always say that it makes sense first to come to someone like Angie and let her help figure out which school is best suited. On the other hand, if I say that to presidents, certainly some presidents, they're like, stay out of my business, and so you're always dealing with that and the sense that Baruch has a reputation, so if you want business, they'll come to us. They don't need anyone in the central office telling us what to do. And you try to balance it. And depending on who is the chancellor at the moment, some chancellors have a greater centralized authority, and others feel that they would rather have a campus make those decisions. We're kind of trying to figure out both. But I come from I've been in the central office for a long time, so I think there's an advantage to starting with us, and most of the city agencies do that. They find it easier. It's not that we'll work with many campuses, but the agency or the business should not have to negotiate 12 different agreements.
I think we have time for one more question.
Yeah, so I think this is great, by the way. I represent about 10,000 people in CUNY, and as a former CUNY graduate, I think to say something, but I have to do kind of do my job.
Henry, can you use the mic?
Wait.
Where I do believe the city has not done well in CUNY, quite frankly, and I don't know where the disconnect is the role of training the city's own workforce. I mean, as we've heard here, 10% of the workforce in the city works for government. And while you hear the success stories between 1199 and Lehman and partnerships, we've been trying really, really hard to connect the training of the same city's workforce. The public hospital system now has a crisis. And part of the crisis is not just defunding by the federal government, but also lack of recruiting talented people. And so as a result, we have to outsource that to private hospitals to supply workers into the public hospitals because we don't have enough people trained. So we hire affiliate, we engage in affiliate agreements. It's to the tune of $5 billion now to supply a trained workforce into the public hospital system. And we do this across the board. Department of Citywide Administrative Services, which is the agency in charge of basically training the city's workforce, and I have a tremendous respect of what they do, there is virtually no CUNY campuses connecting the city's workforce, even in IT and cybersecurity right now, with that of the relationship. And part of it, I have to admit, it's been our fault in unions, because we all negotiate these collective bargaining agreements. And then once you talked about 1199's training fund was very creative in doing that, we have not done that in the public sector. In fact, I've said this with some shame. The training the city spent for city workers is $25. It was $25 in 1973. It is $25 today. And it's just mind-boggling that you're trying to recruit the best and the brightest. It's not all about salaries and compensations and pensions. You got to train folks to be able to do the job. And I have to say, I would like to see more emphasis of connecting this, just as you did private industries, to the public sector workforce, because we have a ton of jobs right now in IT, engineering, the school construction authority, CUNY itself, and a bunch of other places. But we haven't been able to fill these jobs because the private sector is paying more, and we're not training people to create that sort of like that pipeline. And I have to thank Chris for all the work he's done with the help with BMCC and other areas in some of the efforts we've made. But it has to be much more comprehensive.
I would agree with you, and we have to figure that out. We have one really good example that started, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, 2 years ago, I guess, with ACS. We have a workforce training institute with CUNY to train, I don't know, something like 10,000 workers. And it's a whole series of, and it's for city workers as well as some workers who work with ACS. And it's an exceptional commitment from ACS to train their workers. And I know this very firsthand because the agreement is with the School of Professional Studies that I had. And we have a group of people working directly with ACS to plan out the training for juvenile justice and child welfare workers. And so that is a good model. Now it's costly, and you know, but ACS has committed itself to their incumbent workforce. To, you know, now they have been under huge pressure, as you know, with things happening in the press. So that is one example, but we need to do a lot more for incumbent city workers.
Well, thank you very much. It's always, as long as I've been around New York City stuff, it's always an education to learn about everything that CUNY is doing. So thank you, Angie, Jane, and John for sharing some of the latest. I share the factoid all the time. I think it's 6 times the number of graduates from the poor to the middle class of the Ivy League and Stanford, MIT, Duke, and University of Chicago, which is just stunning. So congratulations on that. It's great to hear some of the work that you all are doing. I also wanted to thank the students and faculty who are here videoing the session. You may have noticed these cameras. I didn't really know what was happening with them in the last few meetings, but apparently these are put on the website. So just for future reference, you're going to be but thank you for coming and doing this video work for us. So I think we're done. We're going to do the minutes next time. But thanks everyone for being here.